Hi folks, how you all doing? It's Will here, back for another fight card prediction. I'm going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night 77 from Sao Paulo, Brazil, as we have a trilogy match here between Vitor Belfort and Dan Henderson. Coming off UFC Dublin last week, was over there, enjoyed the fights. It was quite a tough week with Duffy and Pori getting taken out, but nonetheless I love watching live fights, and I had a great time over there in Ireland. They're some of the best people in the world. So thank you to everybody who came up, said hello. Mick, Louisa, Lenny and Dave. I think there's loads of other ones as well, if I can remember off the top of my head. Brian, Noel. There was loads of guys out there that came and said hello, getting shouted at in the streets, and gave me some nice words of encouragement about my videos here. And some guys who came and gave me some pointers on how I should do things a little bit better. And I appreciate that, and thank you very much. Continue to keep watching. This is an interesting card here. If you think Vitor Belfort wins his fight, thumbs up. If you think Dan Henderson wins his fight, thumbs down. I'm interested to see what people are thinking here, because I think one guy's a bit of a heavier favourite than another, if I'm being honest with you. And I'll get to that later on in the card. Overall, the card I think is really, really good. There's some great matchups in this card, especially the main card. It's a really loaded main card for a fight night card. So we're going to get straight into it. Flyweight division. Bruno Rodriguez against Mateus Nicolai Pereira. Both guys who were in the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. Not seen an awful lot of them. I know Bruno Rodriguez, I think it's Bruno Correa, he's got like his nickname. It's like 4-1, whereas Pereira is like 10-2. Going on from what I've seen, obviously Pereira's got the more experience, but I think Bruno Rodriguez has the more talent overall. He has the more chance to kind of finish the fight. They both got fairly far in the show, if I remember right. I've just kind of started watching. But if I had to make a pick, say, from what I've seen, and I've seen a little bit, I actually watched these guys a few weeks back, but I've done like Dublin, and obviously I've kind of relaxed a little bit, and I've kind of taken my eye off it. But I do think that Bruno Rodriguez has got a little bit more in his toolbox than what Pereira has, so I'm going to go Bruno Rodriguez. I think decision. I think it's going to be a hard won decision for Rodriguez, so that's what I'm going with there. Next up is a great fight. We have Pedro Munoz against Jimmy Rivera. I was very lucky enough to see Jimmy Rivera in his UFC debut back in Glasgow, and he came out and he looked phenomenal. Took Marcus Brimage out in an exquisite style in the first round down in Glasgow. Really enjoyed the guy's fight. Really enjoyed talking to him. He's a really cool guy. He's got a great fight here against Pedro Munoz. He's another guy who's up and coming in the bantamweight division. We haven't seen too much of him. He came in against Rafael Assunção, and that's a tough fight for anybody in your UFC debut. Assunção was one of the top four, at least, in that bantamweight division, if not lower third, maybe even. He came in and he lost that one, but he fought very hard. He's a very talented kid, this guy. Followed it up with a win over Matt Hobart down in Brazil with a beautiful head kick, followed up by punches. And then he submitted Gerard Sanders last time out with a beautiful choke. So he's against Jimmy Rivera here, who fights out Team Tiger Schulman out in New York. As I say, I think he's only lost once in his record, and that was a long time ago. Watched this guy in CFFC. Just an all-around good fight. He's got that wrestling background. He's a very heavy hitter. Once he plants those feet and he picks his shots well, you're in a lot of trouble. This is a toss-up fight. I like what I saw with Jimmy Rivera. I think he's got a few more tools. I think he's a bit more grittier than what Munoz is, and I'm going to pick. I don't think too many people pick Jimmy Rivera. I'm going to pick Jimmy Rivera. I think it's going to be a very close fight, but I think he will get at least a 29-28 decision in his favour. Might not. We've got to remember it is in Brazil here, so that's not easy. That's easier said than done. But I like Jimmy Rivera. I like what I saw in Glasgow. I think he's got a lot of talent and he's a good addition to the bantamweight division. So Rivera for me. Next up we have Viscardi Andrade against Ghassan Umalatov. Umalatov, last time we seen this guy was in Sweden against Cathal Pendred. And Andrade, the last time out, I believe we seen him lose down in Brazil. I remember Nico Masoki, Machida versus Masasi. Was that Berlin? When was that? Brazil. It was Brazil. I thought it was tripping balls there a second. Nico Masuki is he's a tough fighter to face. He's a point fighter. He's very heavy. Push you against the cage and he keeps you there. And that's pretty much what happened in that fight. And didn't really get much off against Nico Masuki and lost a unanimous decision fairly convincingly. Before that, his only victory in the UFC was against Bristol Marundi at UFC 163, and that was a beautiful TKO finish there for him. Umalatov, he's really not great in any kind of discipline, but he is very tough, he is very gritty, he's not going to go anywhere, he's going to stay in your face, he's going to hit you with leg kicks, uses his hooks and his jabs well, and just try and make it ugly. But I think this being Brazil, Andrade has got to come out here and impress. I think Andrade could finish this fight. I'm going to go an early third round TKO for Viscardi Andrade. Moving into the preliminary card, which is a really good card as well, to be fair. We have Kevin Souza against Chaz Skelly in the featherweight division. Now, Kevin Souza is a huge guy for this division. He's well over 6 foot. He's very, very long, like extremely long. I think he reaches into the 80s, which is huge for the featherweight division. He's coming off some great performances. His last one, I think, was a fight of the night or a knockout of the night against Mark Adiva. I remember that fight. I just remember watching Kevin Souza and thinking, I really like watching this guy fight. He's fun. He's very long. He's got good movement, and he hits you from a distance in that division where you can't get at him. That wasn't his last win. His last one was Katsunori Kakuno, and that was a beautiful knockout punch earlier on this year. Before that, it was Mark Adiva. That was the fight of the night I was talking about. And before that, his UFC debut against Felipe Aranches, he won a split decision, which I thought he deserved. Before that, I watched him in Jungle Fight, and he had some crushing KOs in that promotion. Fun guy to watch. If you don't know who he is, go and watch him through YouTube or his fights on UFC Fight Pass. Fun guy in that featherweight division, but he has a tough opponent here in Chaz Skelly, who is another one of these gritty wrestlers who does not go anywhere. His UFC debut was against a beast in Mirsad Bektic, and since then he came out and I think he fought quite a lot, and we haven't seen much of him since due to injury. Last time we seen him was a win over Jim Ehlers. It was actually a beautiful TKO. I remember right in that Henderson versus Thatch card earlier on this year. I actually thought he was out longer than that. Before that, he had wins over Sean Soriano and Tom Ninamaki. Another fun guy to watch. If you watch my good friend Daniel Levy's Half the Battle, he had a great interview on there, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that interview. So he's going down at the Lions Den here. He's got a tough opponent, but I think that Chaz Skelly has got enough to win this fight. I think his wrestling is going to come huge. I think when Souza hits Skelly, and Skelly is still there, he's still tough, and he's still coming forward, that he's going to panic a little bit, and he's not going to know what to do. And I like Chaz Skelly, just grind this one out. I can see him put him against the cage, I can see him taking him down, I can see him keeping him there once again. So Chaz Skelly for me via a decision, a very, very close decision, but I think he will get it. Staying in the featherweight division, Clay Guida against Thiago Tavares, two veterans of the UFC, two veterans of the sport. Now, Clay Guida, in my opinion, is vastly deteriorating. He's moving. He's just not as good a fighter. That fight with Gray Maynard, it sticks in my head. I was at Clay Guida versus Diego Sanchez, and that fight blew my freaking mind when I was there in the arena watching that. And to see him against Gray Maynard, since then he's become a point fighter, and he runs away and he uses wrestling, and he's just not exciting anymore. And it's a shame, because Clay Guida was one of the most exciting guys ever. When you knew that Clay Guida was fighting in that crowd, you were fucking amped to see Clay Guida fight. And he's beat big names. He beat Anthony Pettis in his UFC debut. He's got what it takes to beat the big guys. But I do think he's fallen back in his career here. But he is against an opponent here in Thiago Tavares, who is a little bit streaky. He's a little bit up and down, and you never know really what you're going to get. But being in Brazil, it's hard to. So this is the hard pick for me to fight. I believe that I've been going back and forward in this one. I think if Tavares can stifle the takedowns and stop the takedowns of Clay Guida, I do believe that he can win the fight, but it's just really hard to pick against Clay Guida, because he is that guy. He's never going to go away. He's only really been stopped once by Chad Mendes recently. Tavares is coming off that fight against Brian Ortega, which I think he was doing really well in, and then Brian Ortega just turned it on. TKO in the third round there. So yeah, before that he had wins over Robbie Peralta and Justin Salas, who are not big names whatsoever in that division. And before that he lost to Khabib Nurmagomedov. I am going to go Clay Guida. I just find it hard picking against him, even though he is deteriorating as a fighter. Yeah, Clay Guida via a decision for me. Moving on, we have Jan Cabral against Johnny Case. Johnny Case is coming off a decision win over Frank Trevino. We all saw what happened to Frank Trevino. He's now been cut from the UFC. He got starched by Sage Northcutt. Jan Cabral is a jiu-jitsu guy who is very exciting to watch, and but we don't really know too much about him. He's a guy who fought in Dream. He fought back in the day, fought Sakuraba back in Dream, and he won via submission. That was about 4 years ago. Beat David Mitchell from Team Alpha Male in his debut decision. It was a very took him down, kept him down there, moved his positions, and just kind of kept himself winning fights, point fighting pretty much. Then he lost his at Cummins, which was a little bit surprising to me. I think if I remember right, I picked Jan Cabral to win that fight, and then he came back with a win over Yuki Kotani. Now Yuki Kotani is not a good fighter, probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen in the UFC. Johnny Case is a guy who's up and coming, fighting out of the Alliance. Another tough fight to pick. I'm going to lean on the side of Jan Cabral. I think this is I think this could be a good fight for him. I think Case, if this goes to ground, I can see Cabral possibly catching him with something. So I'm going to go Jan Cabral via submission, early third round. On to the main event of the Fox Sports 1 prelim card. We have Gleison Tibau against Abel Trujillo. Looking forward. I always love watching Abel Trujillo. He's got one of my favourite knockouts over Jamie Varner. I still watch that to that day. I've got it in my Sky, as we call it over here in Britain here, and I just watched that from UFC 169 where he just dropped the kitchen sink on Jamie Varner and completely taken him out. It was pretty amazing. But we'll start on Gleison Tibau. This is the guy who's been in the UFC since like 2007, I think 2007, 2008. A guy who's fought, it seems like he's fought everybody in the lightweight division. He seems, because he's been around that long. He goes on streaks. He usually wins 3, loses 1, and then he usually goes on another streak again. We've seen that he lost to Michael Johnson, got knocked out. Then he had 3 pretty quick fights within inside 6 months. Beat Pat Healy via decision, won a split against Piotr Hallmann, which I think was a little bit controversial if I remember right. And then I thought he won that fight against Norman Park pretty simply in Boston earlier on this year, before getting absolutely railroaded by Tony Ferguson, who is just going through everybody in that division. But he's a guy who's very muscular. He never goes anywhere. He tries to take you down and he'll keep you there. And he's got some power shots to take you out as well. We all know what Abel Trujillo's going to do. He's going to come forward and he's going to want to knock your chin off your face. If his takedown defense is any better, this fight could be very, very interesting going into later rounds if Trujillo keeps some of that power to the side. So I'm going to pick Abel Trujillo. I think it's a tough fight for him, but I'm going to go with underdog in this fight. Tibau's got to fade away at some point, I think, because he's been around for so long. He might be one of these guys who goes on another couple of years and might win some fights as well. But I'm going to start saying that he's going to maybe reel it in a little bit. But he's a guy, I don't even think he's that old. He seems to have been around for a long time, maybe in his early 30s. In fact, I was going to pick Abel Trujillo. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go Gleison Tibau. Gleison Tibau. I've got a funny feeling Trujillo's going to win here, but I'm going to go Gleison Tibau. I'm going to go with the smart pick and go via decision. Moving on to the main card, we start in the light heavyweight division. We have Fabio Maldonado against Corey Anderson. I think this fight is the easiest fight in the whole entire card to pick. I'm going to go Corey Anderson. I thought he had a breakout performance against Jan Blachowicz not so long ago, where Maldonado's coming off that loss to Rampage Jackson back in Canada earlier on this year. Maldonado will know what he does. He comes forward, he uses his boxing. He has got some great striking. He's got an unbelievable chin, but this is just a bad matchup. He's going to come forward, which is going to mean that Corey Anderson's going to come forward, take him down, take him out of Maldonado's preferences on the feet, and he's just going to lay there. And there is a chance for a submission for Corey Anderson. I just don't see it. Corey Anderson all night long, unanimous decision. And a great fight here. Gilbert Burns against Rashid Magomedov. Now, Gilbert Burns, I'm very high in this guy. He is definitely one of the prospects to keep an eye out. He's one of the best kind of jiu-jitsu guys, probably in all of MMA, I reckon. Came into the UFC, fought at welterweight against Andreas Stahl. Didn't really do much in that fight. He showed that he's got some striking to go along with his jiu-jitsu skills. Stahl's very tough, but he did more than enough in that fight to win a unanimous decision. Dropped down to lightweight division, faced a very tough Christos Giagos and caught a submission in the first round. And then in his last fight, he was against Alex Cowboy Oliveira, and he was getting dominated for about three and a half rounds, and then out of nowhere got the leg, caught the leg, and started progressing through the gears on the ground, and he caught Cowboy Oliveira in an armbar and won that fight. Now that says a lot to me. That shows that the guy's got heart, he's got determination, and he's never ever going to give up, and he's got those skills on the ground. And if you get taken to the ground by this guy, you're in a lot of trouble. 10-0, Vitor Belfort's prodigy. Saw him in Las Vegas. The guy's quite a bulky guy for a lightweight, but he's facing a guy here who's extremely tough, extremely durable. Comes out of Russia. You know what these Russian guys are like. They're just really tough guys to face. And he's 19-1. Since he's come into the UFC, he's pretty much done nothing wrong. He's got a couple of decision victories. He's got a TKO finish over Elias Silverio last time out in the third round, with wins over Rodrigo Dam and Tony Martin. Before that, Alexander Yakovlev and Yasubi Enomoto. This guy, he's very tough to take down. He doesn't really have big power, but he throws a lot of shots and he's very accurate. So that's something that Burns has to look out for here. I think that Burns might struggle in this fight. I really do. I think Magomedov is pretty well rounded, that he can really hurt Gilbert Burns. So I'm going to go. I'm actually going to. I like Gilbert Burns a lot as well. I'm going to go. Gilbert Burns, because he did look very bad in his last fight, but Oliveira is a tough guy to face. I think he does enough in the feet to outpoint Rashid Magomedov. Don't get me wrong, I think Rashid Magomedov has a huge chance to win this fight. Don't write this guy off. But I'm going to go Gilbert Burns via a very close decision. Next up, lightweight division, Alex Oliveira against Piotr Hallmann. I think this is a really good fight for Cowboy Oliveira. He's coming off that win over Joe Merritt back in Florida in April, I think it was. It wasn't April. It was June, I believe. Right before UFC 189, remember that. In Hollywood, Florida. Yeah, before that, and then he submitted KJ Nunes. Just pretty well-rounded fighter, as is Piotr Hallmann. He'll kind of dive in for takedowns. I think if he dives in for a takedown here, I can see Cowboy maybe catching a guillotine choke, and that's what I'm going to go with here. I'm going to go Cowboy Oliveira. I think Hallmann's going to come in, or he's going to put him against the cage, and he's going to catch the neck. So I'm going to go submission victory, second round for Alex Oliveira. On to this fight is an amazing fight. This is the best fight in the entire card in my opinion, and there is great fights on this card. We have Thomas Almeida against Anthony Birchak. Now this fight, I think it's just a great fight. Not too many people will be signing up to go down to Brazil and face Thomas Almeida. I was very lucky enough to see Thomas Almeida at UFC 189, and he got a huge, big tick for his performance. He faced a guy, he was 19-0, I believe. Before that, he beat Tim Gorman. He beat Yves Edwards, but then he got another step up to Brad Pickett, and Brad Pickett put it on this guy in the first round. He got knocked down, he was beat up a little bit, and then the second round, I can still hear the sound. The knee that he threw in that fight was unbelievable. It was just an unbelievable shot, and I heard it. And I spoke to Brad Pickett the week after in Glasgow, and he still couldn't believe that he got hit by it. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And Brad Pickett doesn't get taken out like that as well. So, but it's against Anthony Birchak here, who was the MFC champion, a guy who made his UFC debut against Ian Entwistle, and Ian Entwistle is pretty much just a one-trick pony. He's got leg locks, and he caught Birchak in that, and he unfortunately had to tap out. Second fight against Joe Soto, he unloaded on Joe Soto and took him out in the first round via TKO. And considering that Joe Soto was against TJ Dillashaw before that, and it took TJ Dillashaw 5 rounds, that says a lot for Anthony Birchak's power that he has here. Thomas Almeida's a very slow starter, so that's something to take in consideration here. I like Anthony Birchak to try and get in and out with his strikes, and not try and trade with Thomas Almeida, because Thomas Almeida has some unbelievable combinations. He goes from head to the body very, very quickly. His body shots are horrible. Really, they dig in and they hurt you a lot. But I think Anthony Birchak is a smart enough fighter to keep the distance and get in and out, and occasionally possibly get a takedown. I can see Almeida getting back to his feet, but I can see Anthony Birchak doing enough to win this fight. I really want to pick Anthony Birchak. If there was an underdog fight on this card I had to throw a little bit of change on, a big bit of change, say if somebody gave me 20 quid, I would throw it in Anthony Birchak. I do think he has a great chance of beating Thomas Almeida here. This is another step up in my opinion from Brad Pickett. If he gets past this guy is going to go into this top 10 very quickly. He's going to go through guys, I believe. The more experience he gets in the UFC, with the more wins, he's going to be devastating to watch. I'm going to go Thomas Almeida. I think it's going to be a tough fight. Thomas Almeida via decision for me. Co-main event, we have Glover Teixeira against Patrick Cummins. Patrick Cummins had a nice win over, I think it was Feijão, down in Brazil last time. A nice TKO finish in the second round. Coming off that loss against OSP, we all know what he's about. He wants to take you to the ground, he wants to keep you there, he wants to elbow you he just wants to elbow you and punch you, and just hurt you from the ground. Doesn't really offer too much on the feet. He's kind of got a jab that he kind of pops out, but he doesn't really do too much with it. He's looking to put you against the cage, get you down, and beat your ass from down there. Where Glover Teixeira is pretty well rounded everywhere. He's a good striker, he's a devastating striker. But we've seen against OSP got a bit too aggressive. He came in, took him down, and then I think he got the finish late in that fight as well. I like Glover Teixeira in this fight, and I do believe that he's going to knock out Patrick Cummins. Patrick Cummins gets hurt kind of fairly easy. He leaps his in. His defense is not. He hasn't got great striking defense. He gets hit. So that's why I'm picking Glover Teixeira. I like him via TKO. I like him in the first round as well. So Glover Teixeira for me. And on to the main card, we have Vitor Belfort against Dan Henderson. These guys fought before. Dan Henderson won the first one. Vitor Belfort, when he was on the TRT, he looked fucking humongous, and he head kicked the shit out of Dan Henderson. I like Dan Henderson big in this fight. I don't like what I saw from Vitor Belfort against Chris Weidman, and now I know Chris Weidman is one of the pound for pound best in the world. He came out, he hit Weidman with a decent shot, and then from there he just got manhandled and he got his ass beat by Chris Weidman. I think he's going to take a step back, but Dan Henderson, he lost to Cormier, he lost to Musasi via both were stoppages. Came back with a beautiful KO Tim Boach in New Orleans. I think that Dan Henderson's going to knock this guy out, and pretty much this might be the last we see of Vitor Belfort. I don't know why he'll really hang around anymore, because he's not going to get anything at the light heavyweight division, he's not getting anything at the middleweight division. So I'm going to pick Dan Henderson here to get off first. Belfort will come out quick like he usually does, and I think Henderson will weather the storm, and like he did with Shogun, he'll be very patient and he'll land that shot and he will take him out. Second round for me, second round TKO for Dan Hendo Henderson. So that's my picks for UFC Fight Night, Belfort versus Henderson. Tomorrow I'm going to put out my UFC 193 Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm prediction video, so keep an eye on that. I'm also going to be doing like a question thing at the end of every month. Please send me in questions, and I will answer them. Any questions whatsoever regarding MMA, and I will answer them for you. In the new year, I might be doing some new things regarding my predictions, and possibly doing a podcast with some fans out there who also do predictions. So I'm looking into doing that. Have to wait and see, because I do work quite a lot, so it's getting the time to do that. So come follow me on Twitter, WillMartin7MMA. If you can like and share this video, please comment. I want to know your picks as well. Go follow the guys at Severe MMA. Do a lot of great work. My boy Daniel Levy, Best Fight Picks, Flying Brian, they do great shows. Daniel does Half the Battle, which is a phenomenal show. I really enjoy. He's had some great people on there. Anthony Birchak, Mike Rhodes, Chito Vera, Chaz Skelly, as I mentioned before. So please go and check that out if you can. And say I'll be back. Keep an eye out for UFC 193. I'll be back for that then. So thank you very much, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.